Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Nick Ritchie, I guess, has been one of the more consistent forwards through the first three games here. Do you notice any difference between what you see right now than what you saw in the bubble and at the end of the last season?
Sorry, Steve, you're cutting in and out. What was that?
I'm sorry. Nick Ritchie has been one of your more consistent forwards through these first three games. Have you noticed anything different between what you see now and what you saw in the bubble and at the end of last season?
Yeah, a little more confidence, assertiveness. He came in late in the year. Good hockey team. We're trying to figure out where he best fits. Pause happens. No one's really sure what's going on. So I don't know if he felt truly invested in the Bruins yet because he hadn't spent much time with us. So now you go into a bubble environment. We're manipulating our lineup for the playoffs, et cetera. Probably doesn't get, maybe the opportunity that he was hoping for. Injury to his hand. Just a lot of things didn't go well for him. Got called for a penalty that got reviewed, and then, obviously a 5-minute major that I think they scored on. So it just seemed like he couldn't do anything right. And then we lose. So, we analyze everything, and now we come into the year, and he's a guy that we knew had some upside to be a net presence. He's got good hands. I mean, he was a first-round pick. There's some talent there, some hockey sense, and we've just tried to find the best spot for him, how to talk with him, what the expectations were, what he could bring, and it's worked out. He scored in training camp, in the scrimmages. He's been a threat every time. Every game's had some looks, had a goal called back, scored one on the power play. We're giving him a little more responsibility in that area. So that's probably got him excited to play too. So we're also finding out what makes him tick, Steve. And he's finding out, how our team functions and the expectation of, practice and in games. So, so far so good. Again, he's a big physical presence that if we can get him playing to his offensive upside in the games where you need that inside, get to the net. We've talked about that over the years. We've lacked some of that. So him and Frederick are guys that we're hoping, can give us that element of abrasiveness in that area. So 3-game sample isn't enough to sit there and say unequivocally yes or no, but so far so good with him.
Dan Roach.
Thank you.
Bruce, just a quick one. Just your thoughts. What was it like to wake up this morning playing a home game at the Garden for the first time in almost a year?
Well, it's great. Again, we walk out there. We practiced here yesterday, Dan, so that was a good thing. We got a feel for it. Again, I think it's going to be a little bit odd with no fans here. I mean, we're used to that part of it, but, the Garden's so loud that'll be an adjustment. But it'll just be nice to be back and, on our own bench and sort of understanding the bounces on the ice and this and that, and just, comfort of home, so to speak. So it's great. Let's hope we respond well. As I said, we've been a real good home team here for a number of years, and we don't want that to change just because there's no fans in the building.
Joey Mack, go ahead.
Good morning, Butch. Hi, how are you, Coach? Now that training camp is behind you and you got 4 games under your belt and you've been on the road and now that you're back at home, how have you seen your relationship with Bergie change a little bit? Or is it different now that he's the captain and he's that true conduit between the coaching staff and the players?
Not a lot has changed, Joe. I mean, when we made decisions here that involved leadership, typically it was Z and Bergie. They were both involved in any decision we made, any major decision. So conversations have been more about without Pasta, who's the best fit, who can we put in there, who can you kind of pull along. So get their opinion on that through training camp, a little bit of feedback for intensity. It was 8 days. I don't know if you can ever truly get to your conditioning level in 8 days without risking some level of injury. So there was some conversation there that would have probably had with him and Z anyway. So not a lot, to be honest with you, just because Bergie's had such a big voice here in the past number of years, even with Z here. So as we go forward, I suspect there could be a little bit more as we get into the meat of it here when fatigue really does set in. And if there's any changes on protocol, those things, I imagine we'll sit down more often. But he has his leadership group that he meets with the players, and I've left that to themselves, and they come to me after if there's issues that need to be addressed that the coaching staff has to step in. Otherwise, we prepare the players to play. We work with them one-on-one, work with them in lines, work with them in group, and we go from there.
Jimmy Murphy.
Hey, Coach, just want to give you a take what you've seen of the Flyers so far in video. And I know you guys saw them in the bubble, and they were actually the last game you played before the pause there. And in that game, at that time, they seemed to be really finding their identity, and took it pretty far in the playoffs there. So just your thoughts on where they're at. Yeah,
good mix of, younger guys and veteran guys. Reminds me of our group a little bit, maybe 3 years ago. When we brought in, the McAvoys, Carlos, DeBrusks, Heinen, Donato, maybe Bjork, whoever was in the mix. There were some younger guys that we were rotating in, good depth, and then a good mix of solid older guys. They have the Giroux, the Voraceks. Now Couturier's out. That'll hurt them. Did in Buffalo, it looked like, or against Buffalo, sorry. And they've got the goaltender, the young kid too. I should put in that mix of younger guys that's come in. So they're a team on the rise, very, very diligent coaching staff. They've been a better defensive team, I've noticed, the last couple of years, protecting leads, et cetera. You're not going to get a lot of easy chances against them, once they get ahead. So that's the biggest difference I noticed. You could maybe in the past, they lose their discipline a little bit with their numbers, and you could get some odd man rushes to get back in the game. So they seem to have, identified that area as being a better team in terms of harder to play against. So yet they still have high end skill. They've got, some big people in there. And their D-core is a little more mobile now. They're getting up the ice. Some names they didn't really know before all of a sudden are making plays offensively. So they're a good hockey team. No real weaknesses. And I feel we're the same way. When we're on our game, there's no one area that we're going to be susceptible to a constant attack. And that's what's, sort of put them as one of the favorites in the East.
Matt Vautour.
Bruce, I was wondering if the caliber of penalty kill that you have makes you more likely to be willing to challenge a call, because there might be maybe less risk involved because your guys are less likely to give one up.
Well, we had one challenge so far this year, and we were talking on the bench, and we have people in place. I was leery at first whether the play would come back once you saw the overhead, because Smith did bump him. I thought his feet were outside the crease, but still, you're not allowed to, the goalie's supposed to be allowed to play his position. So, but to your question, we hadn't scored an even strength goal. It was a 1-0 game. We didn't look like we were generating a lot that day, late in the second. So we took a shot at it, A, because of the things I just mentioned, and B, because we felt comfortable with our penalty kill early in the year. And well, not early in the year. Last year was excellent, the year before, but up to that point. So that was the thinking behind it. So the challenge itself usually goes to our video coaches or goalie Bob upstairs, depending on what it's going to be. And then it's relayed down, and I have to make the final call. But I made it the other day with that in mind, that, 1-0 game can be a lot of risk if they come out and score in the power play, but we felt comfortable that, we could get this one killed. And you're trying to defend your players too, as well. When they make a good offensive play. It didn't work out for us. And in the end, we score a shorthanded goal. So maybe that's karma at work. I don't know, but we did get the penalty killed and get ourselves back in the game. So yes, we will factor in certain things when we do challenge, but the number one thing is always, do you feel you have a really good chance of getting it overturned? And I went away from that a little bit the other day, and for those reasons.
Final question for Coach Kevin Dupont.
Butch, just curious about what your goaltending plans are here for the next 2 or 3 games, and along with the question about what influence does it have to have games back to back against the same teams like you are here? There's a lot of these duos, if you will. Does that influence your thought process?
For the goaltending or for overall?
Just for the goaltending, yeah.
We map out a schedule, Kevin, and it's been mapped out. We're trying to limit Tuukka to 2 games a week. It obviously would depend on, as the year goes on, his health and other things, obviously, but that's the original thought. He was in Monday. He plays tonight. So Saturday will be Halak, and then we'll revisit next week. He'll get 2 out of 3 next week. My guess it'll be Pittsburgh Tuesday and then on the road Saturday. But Let's see how he does against Pitt Tuesday. I think with the back-to-backs, if they're not back-to-back nights, but the same team, which we're going to see all the time, we may factor in now a little more of what's the record against that particular team. Has he frustrated that team, recently, et cetera. And I think teams will definitely do that. Throw the same guy out there if he feels he's hot against that particular, and even the style of play they play. So those things will be factored in maybe more than any other year. So that's our plan right now. And then we'll see how it works out going forward. And goalie Bob has probably a better feel for the experience of against a certain team than I do, because he's been with Tuukka since his first days here, so he will know some of the rinks and some of the teams better than I will. So we always sit down and go through it, and again, that will be factored in.